So the last thing we learned in the Mishnah was, this is the last section of Kachei Kachim, and the same rules apply. They have to be slaughtered on the north side of the Beis Hamikdash, and so on. Now, this particular one is a shlamim. Now, shlamim is always considered kachim kalim, but this one is unique because this is the shlamim they brought on Shavuos. So this is a communal carbon tzibur. So, but it's still a shlamim, but it's treated like kachim kachim. It has to be slaughtered on the north side. And then we went through the hashamis, and we said that everything has to be done on the north side, and you have to sprinkle two, that becomes four, right? The two opposite diagonal corners, and then it splits, so that's all four sides of the mizbeach is covered. So, says the Gemara, how do you know you need tzafan? This is a shlamim. Why should it be on the north side? Remember, we learned that shlamim, we'll learn in the next Mishnah, it can be done anywhere in the base of Mikdash. So Gemara said, the Tani Rabba Rachana Kamei, the Rabba Rachana said for a Rabba, it says in the pasuk there, when it talks about the carbon of Shavuos, you have 2 loaves of bread, and then you have these sheep of Shavuos, and then it says you bring two lambs, which is a shlamim. The Tani Rabba Rachana, it says the pasuk, Va'asisim in the same pasuk, Va'asisim se'id izim, you should make a goat, echad lechatas, so it starts off talking about the chatas, and then it concludes, and 2 lambs a year old for a carbon shlamim. So we make a hekesh between the chatas and the shlamim. Ma chatas b'tzafon, like a chatas in the north, avshal metzibah b'tzafon. So too the shlamim is in the north, because it's a communal carbon. Amalei Rava says, but that can't be, because we learned till now a rule that if something is learned, when Dafnun Hey Amar at the very top of the page, we're trying to work out, how do you know that you can do it on the north side, the carbon shlamim of Shavuos, which is a carbon tzibur. So we said because the pasuk starts off chatas, then it says the carbon shlamim of Shavuos, so we compare the shlamim to chatas. Ask the Gemara, how do you know you do a chatas in the north? You only learn out from Eilah, so that's already a hekesh. And then you want to learn another hekesh to compare to shlamim. We know that something you derive from a hekesh cannot then go ahead and turn and teach something else from a hekesh. We do the chatas from Eilah. How can something that was derived from a hekesh now teach something for a hekesh? Ella says the Gemara. Midetani Rav Modi Brei Rav Kana. Rav Modi, the son of Kana, said, there's a pasuk that says as follows, we say to Rosh Hashanah davening. It will be the day of your rejoicing, and it says, you should blow your trumpets. Al oilei seichem for your oiles, al zivchei shalmechim for your carbon shlamim. Now, so in this pasuk, it compares shlamim to oilus, and starts off blowing shayv. What kind of shlamim are we talking about here? It says at the time you also blow trumpets. Which carbon shlamim do you blow trumpets? The only carbon shlamim you blow trumpets is a carbon tzibur. The only shlamim that's a carbon tzibur is Shavuos. So we're obviously talking about the Shavuos carbon, and it compares it to a carbon oila. Is ma oila kodesh kodashim? Oila is a kodesh kodashim, therefore it has to be geshachted on the north side. Av ziv chesham tzibur kodesh kodashim. Ma oila, just like what do you mean kodesh kodashim? In what sense? So Rashi explains. In the sense is that just like kodesh kodashim, you take it out of Yerushalayim, it becomes it's possible. The same thing here. This carbon shlamim, you take it outside the base of Mikdash. Not just shlamim. You take it outside the base of Mikdash, it becomes possible. And then the next thing we learn out, just like that's the north, this is the north. So as you want, it's a simple question. So let's go back to the first pasuk you brought, that by Shavuos, the goat of a chatas, and then you said, and it says in the pasuk also the 2 lambs of shlamim. So what's the heck? That heckish come to teach you? It's not coming to teach you the north. So what is it teaching you? So what's it coming to teach you? So you must say, you know what it's teaching you? Ki chatas. It teaches you something else about chatas that you learn shlamim from chatas. What do we know about chatas? Who can eat the chatas? Kohanim and not their wives. So the same thing with this shlamim here. Who can eat the shlamim? Kohanim and not their wives. Ma chatas ein and nechel zichr kuna av zichr shamativ zichr kuna only v'zichr kuna. So that's the hekesh. We compare the shlamim to chatas that only males can eat. Abaye said, if that's how you work it, when there's a hekesh, and we learn from chatas, one of the things we learn from chatas is that only it's limited to male kohanim. I got a problem. When it comes to a carbon nazir, a nazir brings 3 different kabbanas, and one of the kabbanas is the ram, which is a shlamim, and there it says the following. It says the following. It says over there, the hikriv as carbon el Hashem, the nazir should bring his carbon to the Eibishter. It says there he brings a keves ben shnasei tamim echad la'oila. He brings 1 carbon as an oila. And then he brings v'kavsa achas. He brings one lamb bashnosa tmima, a year old, is lachatas. And then it says v'ayil echad tamim, and one ram l'shlamim. According to you, we compare shlamim to chatas that only males can eat it. So that means the shlamim by a nazir only the male kohen can eat it. But it's not true. It's not true at all, because anybody can eat. The owners of the animal eat that shlamim. So this hekesh that you're trying to learn, bilim chatas, regarding limiting to male kohenim, is not correct. Are you going to say the hekesh because the and you say only if it's not true? So Rava says no. By we definitely learn from Chat, like I said, limited to male kohenim, but by a nazir there's an exception because there's a pasuk that indicates to us that everybody should be able to eat it. Where do we see that? How do you compare me? Hasam over there, Kivan to see, it says in the pasuk, describes in detail what's supposed to happen with the kabbanis. And it says there, what happens to the carbon shlamim? What should the kohen take? As hazroya b'shela, he should take the cooked foreleg, mina ayil, he takes the cooked foreleg from the ram. That means, as if the pasuk is saying that the only part that belongs to the kohen is the foreleg. Everything else goes to the bailim. So that's why over there we override the hekesh with this pasuk. The bailim eat it. So the Gemara asks, okay, but at least the part that goes to the kohen should be limited only to the males, because we're making a hekesh to chatas, and we know that's not true, because the females can eat as well. Males, kasha, got a problem. Or you boys say more, have another answer. It says regarding the by the nazir, the Torah refers to it as kodesh. It's not called kochim, it's only called kodesh. And because it's only called kodesh, the Torah is telling you I'm reducing it one step. It's not exactly like kodesh kadosh and only males, but even it's like kodesh a step lower that even females can eat it. So again, that overrides the hekesh. But otherwise, getting back to our case of the north, how do you know? We make a hekesh from the shlamim of Shavuos to the se'idis and merchalachatas. So if someone has a question, so what exactly? So if you're telling me that even a female kohen can eat it, so what taka do you learn out that in this very same pasuk it talks about a chatas and talks about the el shlamim from a nazir? What are you going to learn? And the Gemara thinks that we're trying to learn something from chatas to the shlamim. What? So the Gemara says no, the other way around. We're actually learning chatas and oile from the shlamim by a nazir. What are we learning? Because the din by nazir is that you have to bring 3 kabbanis. But after the karma shlamim, he can shave his hair. He sends it and they burn it underneath the karma shlamim. When they cook the karma shlamim in the fire, they put in the hair. And then he's already free. He can drink wine, go to the cemetery. How do we know that the other kabbanis, if he brought any single carbon, that when he brought only the chatas, only the, how do you know that the same rule applies? So that's what this hekesh is going to teach you, that we're learning from shlamim, just like shlamim on its own is sufficient to release the nazir from all of his prohibitions. The same thing regarding other kabbanis. Any one of the kabbanis is good enough. Okay, we completed the section of kachim kachim. Now we're going to talk about kachim kalim. So first one, hatoida, a korban toida, the thanks offering, the el nazir. Again, we're talking about the nazir kachim kalim shchitosun. Here is very different. Where do you shecht it? Any way you want. The damaton, and you sprinkle shtei matana shenaber. That's similar to before. 2 sprinkles, which are like 4. The necholim b'choleir, it could be consumed anywhere in Yerushalayim. The choladim, any person, b'chol meichel, any, you can prepare it any way you want. You can cook it, roast it, fry it, whatever you want. L'yoyim v'layla, it's limited to a day and a night. But ad chatzos, the Rabbanon say you should stop at midnight, like the first mission of brachas. We're scared that you're going to do, if you have plenty of time, you're going to leave it until too late. The parts that are taken off are given to the kohen, which is the breast and the shank or the thigh. Kiyatzmen is similar, same rules apply. Only in Shalayim, day and night. Elisha moeden nechel kohenim, but the moeden can only be eaten by kohenim. Lin shem to their wives, the name of the kids, love them, and to their servants. Talk about we learned. It says in the pasuk as chazei hatrufa shagatruma. It says that the chazei hatrufa and the sheik hatruma is teichlu b'makom Torah. You should eat it in a Torah place. And this is talking about the Shemaynis Me'amaluyim, giving instructions there. And he tells them the chazei hatrufa and all that, you should eat it in a Torah place. What do you mean in a toidige place? Usually we say in a holy place. What do you mean in a toidige place? All the kabbalas till now ate while they were tummy. You know what it means, toidige place? It means that it's partially Torah and partially Tamim. Some Tamim are permitted to be here, and some Tamim are not permitted to be here. In other words, it's only Torah partially. Bekitzer, there were three machnas in the times of the Midbar. There was the Machna Yisrael, which was a camp for everybody. There was the Machna Leviah, where Moshe Rabbeinu sat and legislated and taught. And then you had the Machna Shechina, which is where the Mishkan was. The different stratas for Tumah. And Mitzayra cannot be in any of the machnas. But the age of Chus Machna has to sit all the way outside of the camp. A Zov, one who has emissions, can be in Machna Yisrael, which the counterpart to Machna Yisrael is Yerushalayim. So he can be in Yerushalayim, but he cannot be in the Harabais. Cannot be in Machna Leviah. A Tamei Meis can be even the Harabais. He can be in the Ezras Noshim, but he cannot be in the base of Mikdash, cannot be in Machna Shechina. So the second two camps, the Machna Leviah and the Machna Yisrael, or the Harabayis and Yerushalayim, each one of them is mutter for some and forbidden for others. The outer one is mutter for everybody except for Mitzayra. The Harabayis is mutter for Tamei Meis, but it's forbidden for a Yizov as well. So now we want to know, what does it mean when it says Mokum Toy? You should eat the Chazeh Atrufa, which is like a Shlomi and a Mokum Toy. Where is that? Toy Metum is Mitzayda, it's Toy, we don't have no Mitzayras, the Obatami Metum is Zov, but a Zov is allowed to be there. So we're talking about Machni Yisrael, Yerushalayim. That's how we know that what? Machni Yisrael. That's how we know that you can eat Kachim Kal in the entire Machni Yisrael, entire Yerushalayim. Second one, how do you know that's what it means? Maybe it means the next section. Maybe it means Harabayis. Maybe it means Harabayis. Harabayis is partial, is pure Torah. You have no Zovim there, no Mitzvah, but it's Tameh because the Torah Meis can go there. So maybe it means maybe you should eat Kachim Kalim and Harabayis. It says a pasuk. It says in the pasuk over there as well. Where should you eat it? You should eat it b'makom kaddish. Eat the kard mincha by the shmeish merulim in a holy place. What do you mean it and other things? Oisa makom kaddish. Only that should be eaten in a holy place. Lo yachedes b'makom kaddish. The other ones don't have to be eaten in a makom kaddish. They can be eaten where? After the machna levir. You take them to the whole harabais. Hadar ksiv. And then it says b'makom Torah. It doesn't continue and eat it there. It says and v'achaltim should eat it b'makom Torah. So that's another place. Well, we already moved it out one step to Machna Leviah. So the next step you move it out to is Machna Yisrael. You move it out from Harabaya to Yerushalayim. After Machna Yisrael, that's Abaya. Comes along Rav and he says no. The outcome will be the same, but I learned differently. I say when it says Oisa b'makom Kaddish v'lo yachedem Kaddish, it means Afkil legamri, completely. Take it out completely from the Machna Shechina. Take it out. What do you call it? Take it out from. Take it even out of Yerushalayim. Everywhere. You can eat anywhere you want. Then I want to eat Makom Torah. So bring it back to Machna Yisrael, Yerushalayim. So the outcome is the same, but I'm learning that you push it out all the way. Says the Gemara, if you're bringing it back, how do you know to stop at Machna Yisrael? Maybe you got to bring it back into the Harabais. So Rabbi answers, we only bring back one stage. We only bring back two stages. So also when you went out, why did you jump all the way outside of Shalim? You should only go step by step. So when it says outside, you should bring it to Machna Leviah. So Gemara says that's question number one. It says clearly you're not allowed to eat all these things in your city. You have to go to the Shalim. How can you even think that it means that you can eat these kabbanas wherever you want? It's clear that Abaya is right. Next one is Shlamim. Kachim Kalish doesn't want to can shut anywhere with Dom but you have to have again sprinkle twice in a chol anywhere anywhere format but this is 2 days and 1 night. And Hamoidim engagement, the parts go to Kohen the same. Shamoy Nechel Kohen, the shame of them goes to everybody. Torah Bami learned. Regarding a korban shlamim, it says there's 3 different animals, and sheep, whatever, a cow, whatever it is. It says 3 different animals and a goat, and each one of them it says we should shecht it in front of the oil moed, but the word changes. The first pasuk says v'shachatu, you should shecht where Pesach oil moed, right in front of the door of the oil moed, the opening. Then it says another pasuk with other animals that v'shachat oisei lifnei oil moed, in front of the oil moed. Doesn't say in front of the opening, in front of anywhere the oil moed. And then it says the third pasuk v'shachat oisei lifnei oil moed. Again, the third animal, what you can, the option you can use is again shechted before the oil moed. Now the Gemara says, why do you have to have 3 times? So it must be lahachshes kol aruchas. That means you can shecht it anywhere in the Beis Hamikdash, in front of the Beis Hamikdash, in the oil moed, the right, tzafon, left, dorim, front, anywhere. Bekotchim kalin. What about the north? The right side, the north. How do you know the right side as well? Kalochem, that's pure logic. The tzafon, that's pure logic for the north side. Uma kochi kochi madach kochi kochi. Shlohuchshu b'chol aruchas. You can't shecht it wherever you want. Surely you should do in the north. Rabbi Lezer says no. I agree with your halacha, but it's not a logical thing. One of these psukim is here to teach you that you can also do it in the north, as long as it's in front of the base of Mikdash. You could do it in the north. And Rabbi Lezer, I'm a loy neimer hakosov el lahachzov, and the apostles come and tell you can do it in the north. Because logic, I would say you can't. Why would I say you can't? Sheoch Avram thought. Halaydinu makes sense all the way around. You can do anywhere you want, and yet it's not qualified an area to be used for kochi kochi. Is kochi kochim? That means that place is designated only for kochim kalim. So kochi kalim. So they were only designated the north. Maybe that place is only designated for the kochi kochim, not for kochi kalim. How do you know that you can shech the shlamim on the right side, on the north? That's why you have a third pasuk. So what exactly are they arguing in? The halach is the same, but they're arguing in how you learn that, from logic or from a pasuk. What are they arguing in? Tanakama saw as follows. The din is going to be, we learn out from the word Pesach oil moed, it says the door of the oil moed. We can learn out a halacha that it doesn't have to be in front of the door. We can learn out that the doors of the Beis Hamikdash have to be open before you bring a carbon and you are yaitz. Now, even though we learn out from the pasuk ha'oila that the very first carbon you bring every day is the carbon tomid shel shachris, but that's only lechatchila. But the evid you brought another carbon should be all right. But as long as the door of the Beis Hamikdash is open, because it says Pesach Oimoed, the opening, and if the door is closed, then you're not. No, it's early morning, you're not yaitz. So that's what we learned from the first pasuk Pesach Oimoed. This Gemara proceeds. Tanakama saw a cluster kroik see the 3 psukim. Chad legufe, one for itself. Now what? Then the boy Pesach Oimoed had the door has to be open. The chad lahachshit's done, and the second part will tell you that you can do it on the side, in front of the Mikdash, on the side. The second one says lifnei oil moed. No longer it says Pesach. So anywhere in the front area is good enough. And then the chad, and the third one is lifsel tzidet's done. The third one is, what about those chambers, those lishchas, which are closed areas in the chatzah? That's the side of the side. The tzidet's done, that you are not yotzer. That if you shech the carbon there, you are not yotzer. So even though you're allowed to eat kochim in those rooms because it's inside the Azora and it's part of the base of Mikdash, but you cannot shechten them. You can't, because it's not lifnei oil moed. It's not in front because you have a wall around it, so you're not yotzer. With Safil, you don't need a pasuk for the north side. It's logic. However, I agree with you that Chad Legufe, the first pasuk, you need it for itself. But I hold that the Chad, the second pasuk, is Lahach Shetzofin, to tell you that you can shecht on the north side. It's not just logic. And the Chad, the third one is Lahach Shetzofin. It doesn't have to only be in front of the base of Mikdash, but anywhere, even on the sides, is kosher. And the Tzidet's done to tell me that the side of the side, you have lishkas, this for rooms in Azara that they have walls around them. Of course, it's no good. Says the Gemara, why over here? So now we're referring back to what's this halacha you're talking about? We learned from the opening door. What's the difference when it says Pesach Oimoed, the opening Oimoed? What do you need that for? Shlomim sheshachtan koidim sheyibtchu dals lehechapsun. A carbon shlamim. If you shechted before the doors open up, it's possible. It says b'shachatu Pesach. It says there. It says the pasuk there. Ushchatoi Pesach Oimoed. When you can you shecht it when the opening is there. The doors open now when it's closed. Itmanami, if I learn the same thing. Amar Rabbi Yukim Bar Chama, Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina, Shlamim Sheshachton Kaidim Shehitucho Das Hechel. Any carbon shlamim you shechted before the doors open up, psulim, disqualified. She never said the Shchote Pesach Almoid, Bisman She Pesach Hechel Psuch only when it's open, V'lo Bisman She when it's closed. The Marava Masna Hachi. In Marava they learned the following. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha, Amar Rav Ashi. There's no way it's Rav Ashi. It probably is a Rav Asi, or there's a totally different Rav Ashi. Because we're learning in the first generations of Amoraim, Rav Ashi was the last, and why would Etz Yisrael? There was no Etz Yisrael at the time of Rav Ashi. Everything was already in bubble. Why would Etz Yisrael come up and say something named Rav Ashi? Anyway, over Rav Ashi, Shlamim sheshach, same idea. Shlamim sheshachtem koidim sheifchu das hechav tzulim. A shlamim before the doors of the Beit Mikdash opened is possible, and then he goes further. Uve Mishkan, the times of the Mishkan, they had to dismantle it and rebuild it. So he says, if you brought a carbon while it was dismantled, you're not yotze. Because you need a Pesach, you need to be upstanding and be open. The Mishkan, koidim sheyamidul is the Mishkan before they set it up. Well, achash yigul is the Mishkan before, or after they dismantle it, psulim is possible. Says he about it further. Pshita, that's for certain. Mugaf, if the door is closed, is kanolami. If the door is closed, it's like it's closed, and you're not yotze because the door is closed. And we need, what do you call it? We need Pesach. What about Vilain? What about a curtain? Mai. What's it then if you have a curtain? If the door is open, we have a curtain, and the purpose of the curtain is not to close that people shouldn't enter, but the purpose is to give some discretion. Amar said, "Who Pesach Pesuach." It's only there to keep the door open and so that but people want to have some privacy. Therefore, it's not a closed door; it's an open door. Says you want to find. What about goiva? What about the door itself is open, but you place something in front of it very tall and big, a big pillar, and it sort of blocks the view of the door? How do we view that? Is that still called Pesach Moed or not? Says the Gemara, so goiva, how do you treat a goiva? The Tanya with the Rabbi Yosef Bar Yudah says, Shnei pishpashin hoyu bebeis chalifas. If you have a picture in front of you, we actually have on the bottom of the Rashi. So you have, again, remember, the easiest way to remember is you're walking into the Beis HaMikdash. So you're coming from the east, you're walking due west. You're walking up the 15 steps after Ezra's Noshim, you're walking up the steps there. On your right is Safan, on your left is Durham. And then you have in front of you the following. You have the Beis HaMikdash itself. So you have the Kodesh HaKadoshim is in the back, and then you have the Heichel in front, and then in front of that you have the Ulam. The Ulam is like the entrance hall before you get into the Heichel. Now the Ulam itself was 15 amas wider on the right side and 15 amas wider on the left side than the actual Heichel. The Ulam had an entrance, it was 20 amas wide. And then you walk through that entrance hall. There was another entrance into the Heichel. That was merely 10 amas wide. And we're going to have through the Gemara an argument if the Ulam had the same Kedusha as the Heichel, or it's not really Kaddish at all. It's just an entrance hall before you walked into the Heichel. Now, if you look at that piece sticking out on the right and left from the Ulam, but if you walk around it, behind that piece, which is basically facing the western wall, which is the back of the wall, they built over there some doors called pishpashim. We'll soon see in the Gemara what was the purpose of those doors. And now the average door, the doors in the Beis HaMikdash are 20 amas high. Now pishpashim is a door, so you would assume it was 20 amas high. What was the role of that door? We'll see in the Gemara later. So the Gemara asks a question. It says over here that Yehuda says that Yehuda says Shnei pishpashim high Beis HaChalif. Beis HaChalif was the place where they stored the knives. There were two doors in that section over there, right behind the Ulam, facing the Ma'ariv wall, and there was two doors, and the Goyim and Shemaina are only 8 amas high. Obviously, it wasn't the door itself 8 amas, because all the doors are 20 amas high. It must be they put some kind of a pillar there or something to block. Now they're going to say, what was the purpose of these doors? Because it says in the pasuk lifnei oil moed, you have to shecht in front of the oil moed, which means it can only be in front of the oil moed, right? If they Pesach, you need an opening. So what they did was, and sometimes they needed more space. They needed to be able to use behind the ulam as well. So they made these doors. So when you're shechting behind them in the ulam, in that section of the courtyard, it's also Pesach oil moed. You're also facing the Pesach because there's a door there. So he says that the purpose of these doors were to allow you to eat kachim kalam and to shech kachim kalam. This thing about eating kachim kachim, Gemara later on is going to ask and they'll erase it because you can eat kachim kachim anywhere. Nobody doesn't say you have to eat in the base of Midrash. Nobody says you has to see the Pesach Moed. So it's really all about shechting and enable them to shech even behind the ulam. Now, if 8 amos high, we know every door was 20. So my lavdika kamay Ishmael must have been a blockage there that was 8 amos tall. So what do we see from here? That and yet they still can shecht. So maybe it's not a blockage. So no, that proves nothing. You know why? The gvia inu shmeina. These doors were actually only 8 amos tall. It was only 8 amos high because it was not really doors to be used to go and entry. It was merely a way of circumventing the problem of lifnei oil mine. Makes the last thing, what are you talking about? It says, all the doors were 20 amos high. The Reichven Esramas, all the doors were 10 amos wide. So we answer Pishpish and Shiny. These doors were different because they were miniature doors. They weren't meant to be used as a doorway. So the Gemara was only it conferred the status of door to be able to shach. So the Gemara, what about Vaikat's Dodin? What about on the sides? What are on the sides? Go back to the picture. If you look at the ulam, the right of the ulam doesn't see either door, doesn't see the front of the ulam, the Pesach, nor does it see the pishpashin that's behind. So how were they able to shecht over there? Says the Gemara, Vaikas Dodin, how did they get around that? The Ma'ayla Bekeren Zavis, that what they did was when these pishpashin were not made the way we originally thought, behind that part jutting out of the ulam, it was actually made on the very corner. If you're standing by the ulam in the very right corner there, facing the Kosem Marabi, the very right corner there, so that door faced west, but also faced north. So therefore, you're able to carry that whole area. So ask the Gemara, what about behind the base of Mikdash? The Kodesh Kodashim ended 11 amos before the western wall. You know, there is a machlek of the western wall we have today. Is that the western wall of the courtyard? Some wanted to say it's the western wall of the base of Mikdash itself. Most people think that's the western wall of the courtyard. So the Gemara says over here, but what do you want? So how can they shecht over there? Behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you couldn't see the doorway of anything. So you want to touch my Lul cotton was a small room, attached to the back of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, with a doorway. And it was connected to the base of Mikdash. So that became also a Pesach Moed. And Gavoya Shmoina Amos was 8 amos tall. Kedei lahachshir so Azora enabled the entire courtyard. Achilas kachim kachim. Again, this is a problem because you can eat kachim kachim anywhere in the base of Mikdash, so you don't have to see anything. Or the shchitas kachim kalam, shachting kachim kalam. The Hainu the Chsiv, it says they were posting guards everywhere in the base of Mikdash, and it says it in Ezra. It said Shnayim, they also had 2 guards for this door that's called the Parbar. What rule is that? Bar. This room that was on the outside, this room that they attached, annexed onto the back of the base of Mikdash, that was the way they had a door that now enabled them to shecht over there. And they had guards there as well. You're not chayiv for tumah, ella. In other words, what exactly are the measurements of the base of Mikdash? The measurements of Mikdash are oidech, the length was 187 amos long, on the width of 135. That was the measurements of the Azor, and that entire area is considered Kodesh Kodashim in the sense that you can eat kachim there and so on. It was Kodesh, means kachim. Tony Tanakh Nachman, one of the who was learning B'Raisa from Nachman, said the following: said the same thing, 187 by 135. Nachman said, my father told me the following. The machlekes of Nachman was Nachman by Yaakov, which is the opinion of Tesis, or according to Rashi of Nachman by Yitzchak. My father told me, in this area, 187 by 135, is Koyanim Nichnasim L'Sham. Koyanim can enter that area, but Oichlin Sham Kachim Kachim, they can eat their karbanis, and V'Sheichtim Sham Kachim Kalim, they can shech their Kachim Kalim, because that whole area is considered the base of Mikdash, and the Chayavim Mishum Tumah. Somebody is tummy, enter that part, is Chayav Koros or a Shegi with the carbon over the earth. So we're asking, give me these measurements. What are you trying to exclude? Obviously, it's outside the walls, the base of the perimeter. You're not part of the base of Mikdash. So what are you telling me the 187, 135, and what not? you have holes in the wall, the windows or douses, the doorways. In other words, that the doorways that's made in the wall. And this is the door to go, except Sharnikada, which we know deliberately didn't make holy. But other doors, you want to tell me they're not holy, or on top of the wall. The walls are very thick. The 5 hours, the top of the wall is not holy. They are all holy. The doorway itself is also considered part of the base of Mikdash it was facing. It's coming to exclude rooms. If you had little rooms, compartments or rooms, they are not, you cannot shecht inside them. Now, which ones are we talking about? If they were built in the wall, but they were facing the base of Mikdash, or building right outside the wall, but facing it, connected to the base of Mikdash and open to it. But now we learned Kodesh, we learned that they were treated as Kodesh, those rooms. So which ones are you trying to exclude? So Gemara said, no, those rooms are midrabanan. They're only midrabanan. Okay, all the lishchas are not really mahatoida, part of the base of Mikdash, even if it's inside the courtyard, within the 187. It's not part of it. And no other are the ones outside that, the only way you get in and out is through the base of Mikdash. It's connected, and open there if it's a separate room. What do you mean? But the Raisa, you're talking about Hatoidah, it's not Kodesh. But Tanya, we learn the Raisa. Lishchis benuyes b'choil, if it's built in the wall, psuchel Kodesh, open to the base of Mikdash. Menayish hakoyin nichnosin l'sham v'oich l'sham kacha kacha. I know the koyin allowed to eat their kacha kacha. Knows they are mahatoidah. If it's only with the Rabbanon Kodesh, then we couldn't tell them you could eat kacha kacha. There must be mahatoidah, it's Kodesh. Mishiyari mincha left over mincha. Tamaloimer. So we learn from a pasuk. It says in the pasuk that you can eat whatever you want. You eat the mokum kaddish. And it says b'chatzar oil moed yechlu. Eat it in the courtyard of the oil moed. Why does it add these words? Eat it in the courtyard of the oil moed. It's telling you here ripsa chatzeres harba. That the Torah included, expanded the area of the chatzar. Eitzel achila achas. They're all considered for feeding. They're all considered part of one base of mikdash you can eat. So we expanded to include all of these chambers. So it's Mahatoida holy. Omar Rav Achila shiny. That's different. Only when it's different in him. When it comes to eating, it's considered kodesh, like part of Beit Mikdash. But when it comes to shechting, it's not. Avali, and neither for tumah. Says the Gemara. That was the Easter of Tameh going there. Mahatoida, it's not like the base of Mikdash. Said Gemara, leading tumah loy. No, but time let the brayse lichches abnuyes v'choil. Any of these rooms that were built in let's say in a mundane part of a psuchas lekodesh, but it was open to the base of Mikdash. Koyan in ichnas in sham va'oichlin sham kachim kachim. It's holy; they can eat the kachim kachim. The ain sheichlin sham kachim kalim. At the same time, they cannot shecht kachim kalim. And now, why cannot they? Why? One of the reasons. There's two reasons. Well, one reason they cannot shecht there is because it has to be lifnei oil moed. Has to be front, and this is called, we learned before, tzidei tzidei, and this is the side of the side, so you can't shecht it. And the chayav mishum tumah, and you chayav tumah. So it's clearly there that what? That it is holy for the laws of tumah. Why did Rava say that it's not, as far as tumah is concerned? Lab Amr, so he had the Rava counters. Didn't you say ain't shechtin? It says you cannot shecht. And Rav is learning the reason why you cannot shecht in these chambers is because it's not holy. So it's not holy, it's not tummy. You're not chayiv for tummy. So the Gemara says, so therefore, you said that. So Tninami, let's amend the Bryce and say, ain't chayavin. You're not liable. So the Gemara, what do you mean? Bish, what are you talking about? Bish, you know why you cannot shecht? Not because it's not holy. It's because it's not exposed to the oil moed. It's tzidei, in the side of a side. Being a keneged a pesach, you need to be facing the base of it. It's not. Nothing to do with kodesh. But why, since you're allowed to eat there, the kabbanas, it is kodesh, it should be tummy as well. So Rav asked back, but the time make ain't shechtin. If you're going to tell me the reason why you cannot shecht there is because it's not facing the kodesh, the base of midrash, then why is he learning that over here? It's a different reason altogether. What's that to do with what we're talking about over here? Why is he even included in this brisa? It must be the chiddush of the brisa is that it's facing the base of midrash. So it's mamish facing the base of Mikdash. Let's say it's facing that room of the knives behind over there, the ulam. They have a chamber there somewhere, and it's facing that. And the chiddush here is that even though as far as karbonos are concerned, you can sit there and eat there, it's holy. But as far as chitz is concerned, you cannot shecht over there. Even though it sees the oil moed, you cannot shecht over there. So why? Because it's not really kodesh. It's only kodesh as far as eating is concerned, because we had a special pasuk and the word chatzah to teach you that to expand the chatzah as far as eating, but as far as shchita, it's not holy. If it's not holy, neither is there a problem with tumah mahatayra. He says, it's definitely talking about a case where you're also shechting in front of the base of English, by one of the doors. Because if not, what are you telling me? What's I do with anything? El Avagav the Kershachin, the Chiddush here is, even though you're shechting it exposed to the door of one of these pishpashin, Tani ain't shechting, you cannot shech, which is like cut, it's not holy. So therefore, same thing about too much. What about eating? Eating, could we have a pasuk? Ask the Gemara. But eating, you make it sound like when it comes to eating the kabbanas, doesn't matter where you're sitting inside the base of Mikdash, you don't have to see, you don't have to be aware of the base of Mikdash or the Pesach. But we learned just now, but Tanya, we learned before in the Brisa, the house where they kept the knives, there were two doors. Goiv and Shmoina, there were 8 amas high, and the purpose of those doors were to enable one inside the courtyard. It says clearly the reason why they built the door is so that you can eat kachim kachim. In other words, it has to be able to see the door. Ravina says, Sami mekan achila, erase from here achila. It doesn't belong here because achila can be anywhere. So the Gemara of Aksiv, it says by Shmoyim Mevaluyim, Moshe Rabbeinu gave instructions and he said to them that Bashli, you should go ahead and cook es habasar. I want you to go ahead and cook the meat. And Pesach Oil he says, I want you to cook it with Sham Teichel. I want you to eat in front of the oil maid. You see, clearly you have to eat also in sight of the oil maid. So the Gemara, Koche Shah Shiny. Koche that were temporary, one off is different. You can't compare. We'll pause for 30 seconds.